There's a reason why I think we cannot go back to the 5th century Christianity, or even putting on Greek statue profile pictures and pretending that we live in Athens talking about philosophy or something like this. We cannot return to that anymore, because we have gone through a process of evolution since then that has introduced many new ideas to us that we can't pretend we can forget. We can't just ignore them and put them outside of the way. We have to not try to escape modernity, not try to revert back to something simpler so it can fit inside of our minds. Instead, we need to rise to the occasion and figure out how we can embrace and overcome modernity, how we can integrate all of this crazy stuff in front of us and achieve what we need to achieve. Now, an awful lot of people want to go back to philosophy and Christianity because they feel that it will give them a grounding in a realm of ideas. They can, create an order inside of their world and put it inside of their heads, and this can be their tool they have that they can resist the disorder and the chaos in the world around them, which is them trying to stabilize their reality because they feel instability inside of themselves. It's almost like a personal psychoanalytic project that they're going on when they're doing this. But that doesn't have anything to do with the truth, anything to do with the reality that we have around us that we need to engage with. And this is a problem generally with philosophy and Christianity and ideologues and idealism and these types of things that Nietzsche would often talk about. From the beginning, thousands of years ago, philosophy and Christianity has an otherworldly focus. It's really caught up in the realm of ideas. It's really caught up in that, higher hemispheres inside of our brains, if you want to put it this way. And so if you look throughout the history of philosophy and Christianity, there's this ideological word cell focus, the study of words, the study of higher realms. In fact, there was a long period of time where the Christians were dream reading, essentially, looking at the Bible, trying to create the hierarchy of the spiritual order. It's actually kind of cool, I quite like it. But nonetheless, it is about that sort of escapism into this conceptual realm of juggling and the dream realm, if you want to put it this way. And there was a great shift in Western consciousness that came around about the Renaissance, and in the kind of wake of that part of Christianity played itself out. That part of that sort of mind of Western man played itself out. And then we started to get more interested in the world down here. Jung would talk about this in Ion. We started to shift into the downwards world. We'd get more in touch with nature. We'd look around ourselves and say, you know what? I like the natural world. I want to understand this. I want to understand what nature is. And this is where we got natural philosophy, which is what actually evolved into science. Now, this natural philosophy, is about having a realism installed into it regarding the world. We have these methods of control of thinking. We throw away all idealism, all pontificating, and we establish a first principles thinking process that is based on observing and then deriving consequences out of this. This is called empiricism. This is what Western man spent an awful lot of time trying to understand. We penetrated into nature. We stopped escaping out, and our thinking went down into. We went into the specifics. We went into the depth of nature and tried to figure out the mysteries of God by looking at his creation and understanding how he has built it. We tried to understand the creator through studying the creation. Now, this really quickly worked for us. This really quickly empowered us. This pretty soon had us living in the world of modern medicine, conquering diseases of the past, modern machines, industrial engineering projects. We, in the course of basically a century after the Industrial Revolution, all of a sudden had electricity going. Now look at us, a century later we have computers and we're on the point of creating artificial intelligence and whatnot. The speed of that evolution is just blistering when you look at it. It's amazing the power that it's given us from us being able to penetrate into nature. Now, this incredible burst of power also led to liberalism, led to this sort of liberation of the individual. It led to a certain way of looking at the world that has kind of led us to where we are now. It's led us to this point where everybody's up on OnlyFans and everybody's addicted to porn. And an awful lot of people are kind of standing back right now and saying, wait a second. I'm not sure if this is exactly what I want. They call up Ted Kaczynski, they go read his book, they say, you know what, maybe this whole project of modernity was a bad thing. This is a bad idea. We must return to something more primitive. We must go back. We must return to something that is not so crazy. Technology has been a mistake. We've gone the wrong way. Now, I understand this, and there's probably some truth to it on some level, but I also think that the style of thinking inherent to science is actually the answer to what we're looking for. It's the way that we get out of this as well. And this is what I call biological realism, or being grounded in nature. And to give you an example of what this is that there are realities in nature that are very difficult for our minds to digest and understand, so we're often in denial of them. For example, the hard reality of genetics. You ever look at the black pill community, we talk about like how good looking you are, and they basically say like, you can self-improve, but if you're ugly, if your jaw is not square, if your eyes are not like hunter eyes, if you don't have like nice skin or something like this, if your hair doesn't flick over like Steph's or something like this, you're screwed. You're not going to be good enough. You're not going to be beautiful. And this is just a brutal reality about genetics. If you're born with bad genetics, there's nothing you can do as an individual to make up for that mistake. And nature is actually like this. There's a very firm hardness to it. Some people are better than others. Some people are smarter. Some people have more capacity to build muscles. Some people are more beautiful. Some people are taller. Some people are faster. Some people are simply lucky in some sense. Now, this hardness inherent in nature is very difficult for us to digest. It's very difficult for us to confront. But it's also very powerful when we do. This is what we learned in science. If we're realistic about something like genetics, then we could actually save people in the modern world by helping them become healthier over the course of time and generations. Imagine how much of a blessing it is for someone to be born having less problems than they would have otherwise if we didn't do anything. And I'm not necessarily talking about even something like CRISPR or DNA editing, but even simple things like having a healthy food system, having healthy nutrition, so that, mothers are full of all the vitamin K2 and all the saturated fats that the baby needs in order to grow big and strong and healthy. It's possible to actually establish these things. And you'll notice if you look at modernity that we live in, all of that stuff is ignored and denied. We don't have any focus on these hard realities of nature because they actually insult our soft psychology. They insult our soft, sort of moral taboos that we've built up in our liberal society. Even though people say we don't have moral taboos, we actually do. And they're all built around the restrictions and hardness of nature. As Nietzsche said, we live in a society that is anti-life. Now, if you actually inspect all these taboos, you will consistently see this theme. IQ is not real, it's not relevant, it's evil, it's immoral to believe in something like this. Being fat is sexy and beautiful, and there's nothing you can do about it, so what you need to do is affirm it. You need to lie to yourself and say that it's okay and create an identity that you can stand into, which is, fat acceptance or something like this. Things like what we call eugenics. These things are outright evil, and there's no discussion to be had there anyway. There's no talk about, trying to improve our children and improve the future. That should be wiped off the course. We'll say that these nations are not people and the demographics aren't real. The biological makeup of nations is not real. Instead, it's all about the ideas. It's all about these declarative statements we can say with our face. Your individuality is what matters above all. Your, declared identity and your little funnel of life is what matters. There's not this broader biological perspective that runs across large periods of time. Forget about all that stuff. That's all silly. That's all poo-poo stuff. That doesn't matter. What you'll see with this, these beliefs that make up the modern person, and it doesn't matter if they're Christian or liberal or whatever, or Reddit or Reddit Nietzschean. Anybody who has this fundamental denial of nature that makes up the sort of canon, the canonical beliefs of Western culture, will be counter-signaling these things. They won't want to explore these things. They all reject biology. But the problem is that grounding your thinking and being realistic about these things actually will lead you to actual solutions about all those other things that we're talking about. People's struggle with health, our struggle with creating stability in societies, our struggle about thinking bigger about the nature of the world. So if we want to be serious about achieving a better future, achieving a more healthy and beautiful people, we have to order our minds around this first principle, the realism about biology. We have to embrace nature and life. And as Nietzsche pointed out, most people are going to have this inherent ideological desire to deny life, because life is restriction. Biology is restriction. It holds people to standards. It's not something you can argue with. It's something that must be done. It must be done in an actionable way. And this is a great, powerful secret when you really discipline your mind to think about it. It unveils so many fascinating questions about our world.